Okay, the Ukrainians and the Russians are bringing their war in Africa. Yes, you need to be aware of this. If you don't know it, I think we're going to find out about this very much together. It is crazy, it is happening. Okay, so Ukraine is coming to Africa to counter the influence of Russia. And this means military equipment to some countries in Africa, training for military for some countries in Africa, as much as you can think about it. What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing good. It's a beautiful day. Thank you very much for stopping by. You are appreciated. You're home here, hey? You want to know about the motherland? You're at the right place. Ukraine, right here on the map, okay? They've come to Africa. They are opening an embassy in Nochuk. Where's Nochuk? Nochuk is right here in Mauritania. Brand new embassy in June 2025. Ukraine officially launched its embassy in Mauritania's capital, marking one of 8 new African diplomatic missions aimed at expanding influence and support across Sahel region. The opening underscored Kiev's intention to deepen political, economic, trade, energy, agriculture, mining, ICT, culture, and educational ties. Sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, you have this country from Europe, okay, East Europe at least, or Central Europe, whatever you want to call it, coming to Africa to deepen its ties, to create opportunities, in trades, politic, economic, energy, military, and more. It sounds good, doesn't it? But the question is, why now? Okay, why now? Well, Ukraine is going to help through food and aid in Mauritania. Yes, food and aid. I know you don't like that, but I'm gonna tell it to you. Mauritania is going to receive 400 tons of split peas from Ukraine under the Grain from Ukraine program. So Ukraine is going to give cereal or grains to Mauritania. Okay, this is going to aid school feeding initiative and refugee centers. So school kids in Africa still need food coming from Europe, especially from Ukraine, so they can feed. Now, this program that is called the Grain from Ukraine program, it's interesting. It's a humanitarian initiative launched by the Ukrainian President Zelensky, I just murdered his name right there, in late 2022, in response to the global food crisis worsened by Russia's invasion. Okay, I think this is a very interesting point to mention. Africans still need food from Ukraine in 2025. You cannot feed your children. You need food coming from Ukraine to feed your children and your refugees.
Food, animal food, anything you have on your table can be from Ukraine.
We're going to get back to this because let me just remind you here, there was a moment where a bunch of African presidents went to Ukraine and Russia to try to discuss on how to find a solution to the war they were getting entangled into. I don't know if you remember that. But the reaction of one of the Ukrainian diplomats was, Africans are not to the level of this issue that we're experiencing right now.
The African delegation had no goal for settling the conflict or finding a solution. Obviously, this is not their task. It's not on their level or their competency.
This is way beyond their level. Africans are just coming to look for food. Just to say like Africans are just beggars, okay? You have no food. The reason why you're coming to Ukraine and Russia wanting to end the war is because you're hungry. You need food. Now, don't you feel like things like this emphasizes that idea that Africans are just a bunch of poor people that need to be helped? Now, let's try to dive into this. What is this program about? Okay, the goal of the program, number one, is to combat hunger, especially in vulnerable African and Asian countries. Vulnerable Africans in Asian countries. I don't know if there are any vulnerable African countries anymore in 2025. Vulnerable, like, what is vulnerable? Like you're unable to take care of yourself. You cannot dress up. You're naked. You're vulnerable. You cannot make food for yourself. You're vulnerable. You're so poor. You need help. You're vulnerable. Are there African countries that are vulnerable like that? I don't know. Number two, provide Ukrainian grain to nations at risk of famine and severe food insecurity. I don't know. Famine and severe insecurity. How does that sound to you? It doesn't sound good to me. It sounds like poor people, like clothless, houseless, homeless people that need food, security, and stuff like that. Let's continue. Now, since then, Ukraine has continued channeling grain via WFP to support Malian refugees in Mauritania and deliver food to them. Okay, so there are a lot of Malian refugees. Context. Here's Mauritania. Here's Mali. Well, they don't really get along really well. Not right now. Mali, you would know. Mali, do you remember them? They are the good friends of the Russians, okay? The Russian military have been to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger to train and help them combat their enemies. The enemies, in most cases, are separatists. They are people that want to chop the country into different small countries. Some of them call them terrorists, okay? The majority of those people are not necessarily black like me. The great majority are Arab looking. They call them Berber, so they light skin, sort of Northern African type of people. Now, Mauritania gets along really well with those people that are considered as terrorists and separatists in Mali. And a lot of those people have run away from Mali. They're now in Mauritania. Now, Mali trains and works with Russia. Mauritania has a lot of people that Mali don't want. And now Ukraine is in Mauritania, offering food, training, and many other things. Let's continue. Now, Ukraine will also provide military training to counter Russian influence. Okay, Kiev is offering military training to Mauritanian forces, leveraging battlefield experience to counter Russian mercenary influence in the Sahel.
Ukraine is ready to share its experience in countering the threats we face here in Ukraine. And I mean, first and foremost, Wagner and similar paramilitary groups.
So the Ukrainians basically are saying, okay, we fought the Russians on the field. We know them. Okay, so they are in Africa too. So how about we train you on how we fought them over there? Because they are training the Malians. We're going to train you so you can know their strategies and know how to destroy them. Is this a way to bring war to Africa or not? How do you feel about this? I'm very interested to know how you feel about this. So the embassy of Ukraine in Mauritania is with the goal to obviously be more present in Africa. You know, there is an embassy in Mauritania. Now there is one in Rwanda, in Botswana, in Cote d'Ivoire, in DRC, in Mozambique, in Ghana, and Tanzania. And very interestingly, for many, many years, Ukraine had about just 10 embassies in Africa. And later on, when they were asking Africans to condemn Russia's invasion in Ukraine, and many African nations refused to vote against Russia, that is when Ukraine started forging relationships with Africans. I mean, I'm not the one saying it. You can check that. You can check the years. I mean, Ghana's got an embassy open in December 2023. That's after the war. Cote d'Ivoire in 2024, after the war. Democratic Republic of Congo 2024, after the war. Mozambique 2024, after the war. Botswana 2024, after the war. Kigali after the war 2024. Mauritania. There was no embassy there before. There used to be embassies of Russians. So Russia had a relationship with many African nations. Ukraine's relationship with Africans have strongly started after the war. Surely, can we say it's because they realized that Russia has a very strong influence among Africans and they've been leaving Africans behind for some reason? Could this be perhaps because some of them maybe think that Africans are just a bunch of poor people? You need to help these poor guys who need everything. Ukraine is making a lot of effort. Before the war, there was 10 embassies of Ukraine in Africa. Now they have about 19. Okay, they're pushing forward to try to create relationships and counter Russia's influence. Remember when the war started in Ukraine, okay? We saw a lot of videos online. I'm sure you saw that too. I think it's very necessary that we talk about this, the entire thing. And I remember particularly there was videos of many people running away from Ukraine, including Ukrainians themselves. They were trying to cross to Poland and they had to catch a train for that. And in most cases, we saw videos of Africans as well who were complaining, saying they were not allowed to go to Poland or to run away or to get into the buses or into the trains because the priority was first the Ukrainians. There was a lady from Nigeria, I believe, that was saying that I was told that the priority is ladies first. I said, but I'm a lady. They didn't respond to her.
And when it was time to get on this bus, the Ukrainians said, just Ukrainians, literally as a black person. I even lied that I was pregnant. They didn't care. I was begging. The official literally looked me in my eye and said in his language, only Ukrainians, that's all. That if you are black, you should walk.
So in other words, it was not you. You're not that kind of lady. Not you. So they were left behind and some of them were told you need to go fight if you really are from here. So they were treated in a certain way. I mean, can we say that or not? I know racism is all over the world, but in that specific time where it's life or death, do you treat people in a particular way that clearly shows that not you as first? Or do you allow as a human being to save their skin? Now, the difference is with Russia, and I'm not advocating for anybody at all, Russia has been clearly the friend of Africans for a long, long time. since before independence. They helped a lot of African nations to free themselves. Matter of fact, they helped the ANC of South Africa to get weapons, training. They helped people from Angola and many other places to fight against Europeans. Russia did that. And I'm not saying because they did that, you should give them a green light to everything they do. I'm just saying historically, they have shown a level of empathy toward Africans as opposed many other nations, not only Ukraine. And I'm saying again here, and I can understand that maybe Ukraine at the time did not need any relationship with Africa. Can we say that with time they realize that you cannot neglect these Africans, even though you think they're just a bunch of poor people that need grains and food? Number two, do you think that statement saying that African presidents went to Ukraine and Russia because they need food, do you think it makes sense? Or do you think it's respectful? Is that a reflection of the majority of people in Ukraine? Or that just a statement from this specific person saying it? If this was a statement that blatantly could hurt a lot of people, can we consider this as a separate incident? Now, Mauritania, as you would know, it's a very interesting country. Mauritania is considered by many people as the most racist country in the world. Yes, it's an African country, but it's one of the most racist countries toward black Africans in the world. In fact, Mauritania has a history that's very interesting. You find primarily two types of people. There are Arabs, or Arab-looking, or Berber, like this man, and there are black Africans, okay, in this country. And history, it's contradicted itself. There's one side of history that says that black people lived in Mauritania for a long, long time. Some people say that Mauritania imported black people during slavery, because there was a slavery where Arabs took away black people into slavery. I know a lot of people only know slavery of white men taking black people. There was a slavery where Arab people, Muslims, took black people away. That's why you see a lot of black people in many places like Saudi Arabia. They're black. And Qatar, and you're like, this guy is very black. Yes, a lot of them came from Africa. Now, some people say black people were in Mauritania. Some people say Mauritania took up black people. Well, Mauritania has slavery up until today. Yes. Slavery was officially abolished in Mauritania in 1981. Yes, 1981. You hear me right. So people could take somebody's son because his father was slave. They take you as a slave and you don't get paid. You just mow the lawn, you wash the dishes because your father was a slave. You continue. That's exactly how it is. Okay? Slavery was only criminalized in 2007 and further reinforced in 2015. With that classifying slavery as a crime against humanity and establishing a special court. However, the enforcement of these laws remain weak and convictions are rare. Okay? So convictions about slavery in Mauritania are very rare, even though slavery is still blatant right now against black people. Okay? Now, there are NGOs that speak out against slavery in Mauritania. Like, there are still people living under the shackle of slavery, black people being enslaved in Mauritania. And these NGOs, such as IRA, Initiative for Reverence, these activists are often imprisoned, harassed, or banned from operating. This is Mauritania, brother. No, I don't suggest you go there. No, don't go there. If you're black, no, don't go there. International community regularly criticize Mauritania government for its inaction and denial of the problem. Now, let's go into history again, okay? Now, in 1989 till 1991, there was a war between Mauritania and Senegal. You see these two countries? They fought each other over arable lands, good lands. And then Mauritania chased black people from Mauritania into Senegal. Let me remind you again, Mauritania has a lot of people that look Arab and Berber and black people. Senegal is mostly black people. When they fought each other, Mauritania took tens of thousands of black people, sent them to Senegal, even though they were Mauritanians. Now, those Mauritanians, a lot of them refused to go back to Mauritania. They said they feel actually happy to be in Senegal than being in Mauritania. They're happy in Senegal. Mauritania refused. It's only later on, many, many years later, that they will acknowledge, oh, actually, yes, we do have people from Mauritania that are in Senegal.
My children's future is here, not Mauritania.
Now, that's what I'm saying to you, fellas, okay? What is this? Okay, we're going toward the movement that looks like somebody's trying to create mayhem among Africans. I mean, it's just like it's not enough for them to fight each other over there. They're coming to Africa to fight one another. Let me remind you here that a while back in Mali, here's Mali, okay? In Mali, the Russians are operating. The Malians are fighting separatists that want to take a part of Mali, make it a country. Now, the separatists, for the majority of them, they look Arabs. Now, Ukraine openly acknowledged helping these people.
The fact that the rebels received the necessary information that allowed them to conduct a successful operation against Russian war criminals, the whole world has already seen this. In principle, this can be commented on. We certainly will not disclose any details, but let's say there will be a continuation. This is sensitive information. Therefore, everything that Ukraine does is happening within the limits and within the framework of international law.
So this man is saying, he claimed that it's because of the Ukrainians we helped these people hit the Malians. Now, why did they hit the Malians? The goal was to hurt the Russians that were in Mali. And by hurting the Russians, they unalived a lot of Malians as well. Now, my question is this one. If you have a problem with the Russian because he's fighting in your country, should you go fight the Russian in a different continent and, by the way, unaliving people from that continent because you're angry with the Russians, and boast about it and say, yes, we are the reason why they unalive people? Mali cuts ties immediately with Ukraine. Immediately. Burkina Faso followed through and Niger followed through. While the other Africans were beating around the bush, not knowing what to say. My question is very simple. If you go to Europe and unalive people from Europe because you're targeting some people who fought you in your country, do you think Europeans will be beating around the bush on how to condemn you? Now, let me restart again. If you as an African go to Europe and unalive Europeans because you were targeting an African that fought you in Europe, do you think European countries will be there mashing the word? They'll be very simple, very clear. Don't do this anymore. We are cutting ties with you immediately. Well, Africans did not do that. Most of Africans stayed quiet. It's only a bunch of countries, maybe I believe Senegal, that it told the ambassador not to boast about their attack in Mali because it makes no sense. You cannot do that. That is not Russia. My thing here is there's absolutely nothing wrong with Ukraine trying to build relationships with other countries. I think it's their right, number one. Number two, maybe they realize that, you know what, we need to build relationship with Africans. We shouldn't be perceiving them as lower grade citizens who are not allowed to get into the trains, or they cannot do anything, or they need food to survive. Maybe we need to see them as equal, which is a good thing. But do they do that really because they've realized that? Or they are doing it just because they want to gain support? That's number two. Now, should we all be the friend of the Russians because Russia in the past had done absolutely nothing to the Africans? They've never colonized. They've never done anything wrong. Well, we can't really say that because you don't know what the politics of Russia is right now. Diplomacy and things change with time. Goals and objectives do change sometimes. Just because somebody was nice to you in the past does not necessarily mean that they're going to be nice to you forever. America was a good friend of the jihadists at the time. The Taliban were friends with them. They trained them to fight the Russians at the time. How did they call them? USSR. They trained these people they call terrorists today to fight USSR back in the time. But today they are worst enemies. All I'm saying is Africans need to be very careful and see how they're trading. Because what is simple and clear is Mauritania receives a lot of money coming from the United Europe, or you call it European Union. They paid about $200 million in 2024. $210 million was paid to Mauritania, a signed deal, cooperation agreement, which includes border management, surveillance, anti-smuggling effort. So the goal is to stop all the black people who are trying to go to Europe through the Canaries. You see, they are the Canaries Islands. They belong to Spain. Now, Mauritania received $210 million from Europe so they can beat the black people. That's what it is. Beat you up bad so when you go back to your country, you can tell. Say, oh, you do not go over there because they're going to finish you. That's how you discourage people. The first come, you beat them bad. You treat them like trash. So when they go back wounded and scarred, they go tell a story. Mauritania does that. I mean, they don't officially say it's for us to beat them up. How do you think you're going to control immigration of people? By giving people sweet and chocolates? Absolutely not. Now, am I saying that they should encourage black people to go to Europe illegally? Absolutely not. But I'm saying there are other manners to achieve it. Now, if you think you know those manners, I want you to tell me how you feel about this. So what is clear here, Mauritania is a country that has a lot of black slaves. Mauritania is a country where a lot of people that are fighting the Malian government wanting to slash the country into two so they can create their own nation are stationed today. They are called refugees. Those people call themselves Malians. The Malians call them separatists. Mauritania is the place where Ukrainians come now to provide food, training, military equipment, and intelligence services. Now you see where we're going now. Let me know how you feel about this. It's always a great pleasure. God bless.